Hi, folks. How you doing? And welcome back to the Pod Blast. And I tell you what, I have got a fantastic guest here. Very funny woman. Does the Edinburgh Festival each year, but she's played at the Apollo amongst all the other great venues. Jo Caulfield, welcome to the Pod Blast. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm good. I'm good because I've just vented at EE broadband, which is always a good start to the day. And they did, I think he got more than he bargained for because they were doing their follow-up call. But they do a follow-up call, and I thought, but you don't have any information about what happened with the broadband or anything. They'll ask their sort of questions, and I was perfectly nice to him. I said, it's not your fault, but put this down. This is what I want to say.
That's good. So, listen, it's like, well, we've got another Edinburgh Fringe coming up, and you're looking forward to
Oh, always. In one way, which isn't what you should say, is because I live in Edinburgh. So I literally can walk up the road and do my show. And, I never do that all year round. I'm traveling. So that it's such a nice feeling to do that. And I also look forward to have people that come and see me every year,
it.
and that's a really nice feeling. I can feel it in the room that there's a sort of sense of like to be mad and talk about myself in the third person, but the audience going, "Oh, it's Jo. We know what she's like," in a way which makes me like a child. I behave even more badly because I know that's what they want, and I'm allowed to. I'm sort of given license at the festival to behave even more badly, say even more awful things about people, celebrities that I don't know, who are probably perfectly nice, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, what was life like? I mean, you were born in Wales, weren't you? Or was it England?
Yeah, no, I was born in Wales,
Born in
but
Wales.
I'm a right old mixture. So
Okay.
my parents are both Irish. My dad was born, he was brought up in Belfast, but his mother was from Tipperary.
Yeah.
He was evacuated there to Tipperary in the war because they got bombed in the Blitz at Belfast.
Mhm.
So that, and my mum is also from Northern Ireland, but then my dad joined the Air Force, so that was a posting in Wales,
Yeah.
and so I happened to be born there. But it's a weird one, and then moved to England, moved around a lot in England. Used to go to Ireland for our holidays, summer holidays, see relatives,
Mhm.
and then now, I suppose if I was from anywhere, I would say London, just because I lived there longest. But then, when I moved to Scotland, just on a whim, really, and I really like it here.
Mhm.
And people were like, "Oh gosh, that's a big thing you've moved to," and I didn't feel like it was. I think because I'd
Mhm.
moved about all my life, and I still
Mhm.
go to London a lot. And I said, "Well, I feel, I suppose, in one way, it's a nice thing. I can sort
Yeah.
of feel at home anywhere,
Mhm.
but you're not really from anywhere."
Yeah.
I have places where I feel connected,
Mhm.
and I feel very. Me and my brother did a big trip back to Ireland to bring. We brought both my parents' ashes back now, and that was nice. And I really feel a connection there.
Mhm.
And obviously, I've got cousins there and stuff. So although I know I sound incredibly English to people, I'm not. I am a sort of mixture of things, and it really comes out in the football. Um, when was it? When was it? I can't even remember the Euros where Wales did really well. And I remember being in the pub in Leith, and everyone was watching a different match, and they had Wales, Russia, and suddenly on the small, just one telly, and I was watching
Mhm.
that because I always, like if Wales are playing, I'll support them. Ireland are playing, I support them.
Mhm.
Scotland are playing, I support them because it's only polite because I live here. And England would sort of be my last team to support in that way. I would probably, I would
Mhm.
support Spain before I would
Mhm.
support England.
That's mental. I think that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe Euro
Yes, yeah.
2020, I think it was.
Yeah, I
If
think it
I was
was
there.
when and they were so full of joy to be in there, and it was lovely because it wasn't it's always the thing with England, and there's some great players that I like who play for England, but it's always that thing of they expect it,
Mhm.
and that annoys everybody, and they always go on about how they're going to win.
Mhm.
But Wales, they were like, we can't believe it. It was just lovely. It was fantastic to watch, and it was all just passion getting them through. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was amazing. So did you always want to be a comedian? Like since you were really young?
It's a funny thing because I didn't know what it. I mean, like I grew up, it wasn't a thing people thought about. I think now it's very different because there's so much comedy on television for the last sort of 25 years
Mhm.
that people think of it as a career. You
Yeah.
know, people of my generation are nearly all misfits who were doing other things. You know, like all I knew basically was I thought I would like to be self-employed. And the world then seemed very like there was lots of jobs. Like I came to London at 17, and
Hmm.
you could just go from one shit job to the other. You know,
Hmm.
bar jobs, shop jobs. You know, blokes did. You know, guys I knew my age were doing a lot of building site jobs. There was perfectly enough money to live on, and there was cheap places to live. There was also, at that time, I lived in what were called legal squats, you
Hmm.
know, and you were allowed to live there, you paid your electricity until a lot of it was finding out who owned these houses. And then they would go, the local authority go, we found out it's somebody living in the Caribbean, you know, often rich people who owned lots of houses, and they just let them go to rot. I lived in Kilburn and one of them for ages, but there was a whole street of them.
Hmm.
It was a sort of cheaper. I think you had more options and less, I feel less. I mean, you know, you didn't make sensible decisions. That was the
Hmm.
thing then in the 80s. And I think now, I think young people are very much forced to make sensible decisions,
Hmm.
which may be a good thing, but I don't know that it is because you don't get to experiment, you know.
Yeah.
So I had a market stall. I was very into the rockabilly scene, 50s, 60s music and garage music and stuff. So I
Hmm.
had a store with a friend. We sold 50s and 60s clothes, and I was waitressing and working in clubs and stuff. And then I was in a band for a while. Used to play drums, not very well, but you know it was simple what I did. And comedy was always there in my head in that I enjoyed it
Hmm.
and I liked making people laugh. Like when I was a waitress, if I could make customers laugh, then I knew I would get more tips. So I could be quite a funny waitress, but not all the time. There were some tables where if I didn't like them, like I would close up like a shell and I go, well, they're not getting funny waitress. At all, they don't deserve it, you know. So sometimes then I wouldn't get any money at all, and they would just go, well, "She's very rude." But it was sort of in my head that I liked comedy, and then at that time, my sister was a writer. She had started writing plays and putting on plays, a lot of fringe theatre, stuff like that. So I acted in a couple of those things. And then there was a couple of people there who were talking about this new thing of stand-up comedy, which was different. So this was late 80s. And I remember going down to what was the original Comedy Store, and it was all very messy in terms of this person's now going up on stage. And I don't remember thinking that anyone was funny. I just
Hmm.
like more the atmosphere of it.
Hmm.
It's quite anarchic. It was a lot of men, young men shouting. And I felt a bit like, oh, I've had enough of men shouting. So in that way, it didn't really interest me. But it was more that, oh, it's a thing. This is comedy, but not how I've seen it. So then I started watching with friends videos. You would watch videos, and I remember seeing Steve Martin and also Richard Pryor, and with Steve Martin, what was good was I thought it was absolutely he was an idiot, so I could do that. It
Hmm.
made it seem doable. I didn't realize the skill involved at all. And then I did go to a comedy club. This is the first time I went, and there was comedian Mark Lamar who doesn't do it anymore. But
Hmm.
I knew him from the rockabilly circuit, and I had no idea that he did comedy. It
Hmm.
wasn't a thing he talked about. And I went down to the comedy store with a friend. Mark Lamar was comparing, and I saw Jack D. And that's what made me go, oh, I could do this because like, the old fashioned comedians I'd seen on telly were very people pleasing. They were very, I'm here to entertain you. I'm a cheeky chappy, you know, you'll like me.
Hmm.
Or women were sort of grotesque.
Hmm.
And Jack D was just like a bloke moaning about stuff, you know, and being sort of sarcastic. Mark Lamar was hugely sarcastic, came on stage like, I really don't give a shit whether you like me or not.
Mhm.
And that made me go, I think I'd like to do this.
Mhm.
And then I did an open spot and I was hooked immediately.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. You know, I've always thought, for to make people laugh, it's like a God-given talent. You know, it's like, honestly, get me on the stage to perform a play, I'll do that, not a problem. Get me up on a podium to speak to an audience and try and crack jokes or tell funny stories. No. Crap, I'm crap at that.
But it's also something that, you learn, it is a craft. It's not just, going out. Because I think, sometimes some of the funniest people are not comedians.
Yeah.
They're just funny people, and they would go, well, why on earth would you want to do that? They don't have whatever that hole is inside you mentally that makes you want to do it. But I think it's, and also you're looking for things. I think that is often the thing why some comedians are very extrovert,
Yeah.
but a lot of people will think that a comedian is just going to come in a room like a clown and be, hey, let me be friends and funny with everybody. More often, we're the one in the corner looking at everybody, looking at the loud person in the room and going, what a wanker that is. We'd like to sort of stand back, see how things work, because it's observing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the kind of comedy I do and kind of comedy I like, which is observational. So a lot of the time you're doing that. There's part of your brain that is slightly outside experience all the time.
Do you ever have to deal with like a lot of hecklers?
It's kind of a myth, heckling, in that people very rarely say anything witty. What people think is heckling is often, it's people, remember, some people will be very drunk. So you get what's more annoying, you get people excited who want to join in.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes they join in a fun way. It's okay. I don't mind, because they're like, oh, he does that. My husband does that, or, oh, I did that. Or they find a word funny. So they just repeat the word you've said, and you've got to kind of deal with them to sort of calm them down. And that's where
Yeah.
you might have a bit of banter with them. The thing that's annoying is if they do that too much.
Mhm.
And the most annoying thing is someone laughing too much,
Mhm.
because they realize the rest of the audience now have heard their laugh.
Yeah.
So they will laugh extra loud, and it becomes a thing that all the
Yeah.
audience is thinking about is when that kind of person is going to laugh. So
Mhm.
if it's them, I'll try and ignore that. Like
Yeah.
a spoiled child, I will give them no attention at all. So
Mhm.
they'll stop that. But more often, I think I like to interact with an audience, and I'll ask them questions. And it's more that things people will tell you can be great. They'll be totally open about their lives with you,
Yeah.
which is a really lovely thing. And I like that, because also the audience know this has only happened in this room tonight
Mhm.
with this particular group of people.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think when you first started, it was a lot rougher. When I first started, audiences were rougher in terms of how they behaved.
Yeah.
Now, I find audiences are very polite.
Mhm.
Something's shifted,
Mhm.
especially younger people would be polite. And, there can be comedians on who are not very good. And I've been there going, oh, I'd really like to heckle. I'd really like to shout something now. But people don't anymore. But they did used to, or they would just start talking. I did have that when I first started. I remember I just was on stage and realized that the whole room had just started talking and was completely ignoring me in a nice way,
Yeah.
just going, oh, well, she'll carry on and we'll carry on our conversations, and hopefully she'll stop soon. Because that's the thing, you have to learn in front of people. There's no other way
Yeah.
of learning how to do
Yeah. But I
comedy.
mean,
Yes,
you get a lot of ignorant people. I've noticed that. I've watched videos of that actually. The comedians that are, even guys like Jimmy Carr, who are doing their bit on stage, and then maybe there's people in the audience talking, and then he pulls them up for it, and it's funny when he pulls them up.
yeah.
And it's very satisfying as well to see it
Because they're
done.
nearly always talking about something. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can be funny because they'll go into the detail of why they were talking about the thing you were talking about, because they were saying, like you might be saying, they go, oh, because we were saying, because we were going to get the train there and then we didn't do because my auntie died. And you're like, what? They'll give you a random piece of information that is then, a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But they are actually following the show.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, you played a lot of gigs. What would you say was your favourite arena to play at? Like your favourite venue?
It's hard because you get different things, like a big theatre, like when I've done, usually, like I've did big theatres supporting, acts like John Bishop or Graham Norton on tour. And that's wonderful because the whoosh of the sound, and also they've paid a lot of money, so they're going to laugh. There's also that they are invested in you being funny. So, there's pretty much, you have no doubt they are going to enjoy this. But it's slightly controlled. But then somewhere, a smaller comedy club, like the Comedy Store that is set up for this, or the Stand in Edinburgh. There's other comedy clubs where you go, anything can happen here. It's a bit more, you're free, a bit more, say whatever you like here. And that I think is what it's really about, stand-up,
Absolutely.
when it comes back to it. You can do a theatre tour show, I can do my own show, but really that 20 minutes where often they don't know who you are. They're judging you entirely on this, whatever comes out of your mouth and what they see when you walk on stage. And that, I think, is the biggest test for the comedians and the biggest reward if they laugh and enjoy it.
Yeah. What would you say was maybe one of the worst gigs one of the worst venues you've ever played at? Maybe like for a really bad audience is concerned?
Sometimes it's weird. It's the setup can be really bad. You can walk in, often like a sports hall with really high ceilings and those great big round tables that they bring out for functions that you might have at a wedding. So people are far away from each other. Those tables are far away from each other. The lighting will be too bright and it'll be cold and just you go, oh, this is terrible, right? But at the same time, I know, but the audience doesn't know that. They don't know that this is a terrible room for comedy. And then the stage can be really high. And I've done a few gigs recently where I organised them to sort of get ready for Edinburgh, and they're mostly like sort of funny community halls in Scotland. And I'll walk in and I'll go, well, what different lighting can we have? And it's strip lights on, strip lights off. That's it, right? But the shows have been really fun because the audience are just so thrilled somebody's come. So in some ways, all those rules, and we found out this a lot during COVID. All the rules that comics have about a room, you want a low ceiling, you want people slightly on uncomfortable chairs, very close to each other, all these things we like. And then in COVID, you're playing, I remember I did a gig in Manchester in a bowling club. So it was outside, stages outside. They'd put circles in chalk and people had to sit within their circle. And then they had to be however many meters away from the next people. It was also freezing cold and getting darker and darker. Great gig because people, they wanted the comedy, you know what I mean? They wanted it. I think the worst thing that I overheard what they said was years ago, this is probably 25 years ago, I did a cruise ship, me and this other comic who was older than me. And this was when they were trying to get sort of comics sort of from our circuit to do it, rather than these very older mainstream, very clean comics. And I went on and they just stared at me. It was like they had no idea what I was doing. They were looking at me. And then this woman said to her husband, she went, when's she going to start singing? Like they couldn't understand what my act was. Because to them, because I wasn't going, well, my it wasn't like regular jokes they'd heard before. That's what they're used to. To them, it was like I was just talking. And at one point, I've either got to do a magic trick or sing a song. Otherwise, it's not an act, right? And then, so we were going, and when we came off, like we both thought we'd had terrible gigs, they just ignored us. And the guy who booked the entertainment went, "Oh, that's the best, people have gone down." I was like, "Oh my God." And then I overheard people, that's the thing, if you're on a ship and you hear people talking about you, and they went, "Well, we went to the comedy last night." "Oh, what was it like?" "The girl was dreadful." And I'm lying there like that. But it was a situation where I thought, well, they don't understand what I'm doing. And I don't have enough skills to get them on board, which now I think I would. But also it was they were so much older that this was a comedy they hadn't seen. They hadn't seen. Now everybody's seen Michael McIntyre, and, everybody knows what comedy is now. That sort of comedy.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you've been on the Edinburgh Fringe circuit for a while now, eh? I mean, how many years have you actually did the Edinburgh Fringe?
I don't know. I'm not a great one for dates or anniversaries or anything like that. So I know when I first did it, the Dome, which I now believe they don't use, that was the first year. The Pleasance, that was the first room I did, and the Pleasance, that was the first time they did it. So it was like 2020 something, something like that, and it was already, it was a massive thing then, and so, I didn't do it when it was, people talk about doing it when it was much smaller, but it was already a big thing and an expensive thing then,
Because, I mean, I remember over the years, like when the festival's on, and I've always saw your poster up somewhere, if it's in Princes Street or McEwen's Hall or outside those places. I've always saw your poster, which is mental. It's just great. It's great speaking to you, honestly. It's fantastic. Right.
It feels a bit like when people go, it feels like a bit like, they're going, and you should stop now, Jo. Like, that's enough. You've done it enough.
Just keep on going, Absolutely. So, I mean, honestly, I've been watching videos of you and stuff, and absolutely fantastic, really funny. And I'm going to come and see you in the stand as well.
Brilliant.
I was going to say, have you ever had any embarrassing moments on the stage?
I think it's all embarrassing when you start, but you don't know it. And now I'm embarrassed now to look back and think, God, you really didn't know what you were doing. And, it was very hit and miss whether, gigs worked or not. Oh my God, how embarrassing. Or to think that I'd asked friends to come along. Even now, I don't really like friends coming because I'm at work. We also always have this slight fear that this is the night where it's all going to go badly wrong. But when I first started, I had no idea about that. And I remember inviting, I think, about 7 or 8 friends to come along and was doing an open spot just, so I wasn't getting paid. And it was a little room above a pub in Soho. And the guy running the gig waved me off stage. Literally, if he had had the crook to pull you off, he would have done that, but he didn't. And he came to the side of the stage and just went, "Come on, off," because it was going so badly. But I, again, was so ignorant that I didn't even know it was going that badly, and that's really embarrassing. Or, so sometimes it's more looking back, or if someone says to me, "Oh, I saw you years ago," and I go, "Oh God, did you? Oh my God, how bad was it?" That really makes me cringe to think about that. Yeah. But, it was a long time ago. Now it's mostly it's fine. You have things where you say the wrong you might say the wrong thing to people, and also as I've got older, you don't realize what's going on in people's lives. I'm more aware of it now, being older, that people die, which you're not aware of when you're younger. And I do remember talking to a woman in dating, and she was on her own with her kids and there. Well, the older kids, and I was sort of saying about the husband, and I was making jokes, and then afterwards she said, "Oh, I didn't say anything about my husband's actually dead." And I was like, oh my God.
Mm.
Because I felt really bad for her. I mean, her kids were like in their 20s or something. But I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, why did you not shut me up? And she goes, well, I didn't want to embarrass you, you
But
know. And she goes, and you don't know. She was really nice about it. She goes, you didn't know, did you? But I was thinking, oh, please stop. you know. Like, but that would have been so embarrassing. I mean, if she had said out loud, well, my husband's not here because he's dead, then that would have been terrible. Now I get much more sense of that. And funnily enough, I had a group the other night and I thought, I think they're a widows club. And it was a mixture of men and women. And then afterwards they said, oh, we're glad you didn't say to us because we're a group of people who met through bereavement. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, is that weird? I thought that. But open as we are about that, people don't really want to hear about it. you know.
you know what's funny? I like watching all the comedians on TV, like on YouTube and stuff. And
Mm.
one thing, obviously, you don't see now is the Blue Rinse Brigade
Mm.
in the audience with the big long coats and the hair nets and
No.
stuff. Yeah, it's
Well, I
just,
think they're long dead, people like that. I mean, even people in their late 70s are not old in that way anymore.
yeah,
It's that weird thing where you look at photographs. I look at photographs of my grandparents and
yeah.
realize my gran was only about 52 in that photo, but women looked so much older because
Yeah.
like you say, you did, oh, well, I'm doing my hair in that tight little perm thing and I put on my old lady clothes and that's it for me for the next 40 years. But
Yeah.
people are so much younger. And also you think about what people have lived through.
Yeah.
People are in their 70s, they've been through the 70s, they've
Hmm.
been through the drug era. They're
Hmm.
very different generation to my parents' generation
Very
who
hard
didn't
living.
have that.
Yeah. Very hard
They
living.
didn't. They lived through the easier times. Yeah.
Mhm. I think nowadays you get people in their 60s and 70s, especially women, have had facelifts, have got like the hair extensions. So it's just like a different total. Like, I think people look younger than what they did from like the 70s.
Oh, hugely, and also people have weird ideas. I mean, I'm 61. People have weird ideas about what age
Yeah.
is. So
Hmm.
I'll get people come to my shows. I get young women come, which I really, really like to see. And
Hmm.
then I'll get people, who could be in their mid 70s.
Hmm.
But I don't think, oh, there's older people in, I better not swear, or, of course not. That's what they've come for. And if anything, they're less likely to be shocked because they've had more things happen in their lives.
Yeah, totally. They've
Yeah.
seen quite a lot of things in their lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. So, I'm going to ask you one more question here, Joe. If you were to give advice to a teenager, like a very young you,
Mm.
knowing the life that you've had so far, what would it be?
Well, if I was to be sensible, I would go, when you were in London in the 80s, why didn't you buy a flat? Imagine. I mean, because things were cheap. Oh my God. If I was that sort of person, I would go, oh my God, you could have made a bloody fortune, you idiot, right? But I'm not that sort of person. I would have never made that sensible decision. So I more think, it's hard. It's hard to know because you wouldn't be what you are, and also you wouldn't take that advice because you don't know it's good advice. You learn by doing things and then going, all right, I've learned I should do that. And
Mhm.
comedy, you have to work at it. You have to do it a lot to really invest in it and know what you're
Mhm.
doing. But if you tell that to somebody, they're like, "Oh no, but I'm just great and I just want to do it." And you go, "Fine, go ahead." You'll learn. You'll learn that it's work and you need to work at it. So I don't think I would have given. I wouldn't have taken advice
Yeah,
because you can't until you know you need that advice. You
yeah.
can't listen to it, can you? Because you go, "Oh, shut up, you boring old cow." No.
Just taking it day by day, or just taking
Yeah.
time. But you'll probably find as well, with you being a comedian, like you'll probably still learn stuff each time you go on the stage. Like maybe when you started off and you thought, oh, I don't know, maybe the audience didn't like that, or and then when you next go back on stage, you learn from your mistake from the last time. Do you still feel that?
Always. Always, it never ends. I mean, I'm sure it's the same, with acting. You're always learning, and I try and do that at the Edinburgh Festival. Have a thing where I could go. oh, and this year I'm going to do more of this. 1 year I was going, I'm going to do more act out conversations within my stand up. So you do learn things and you have to relearn them, which is really annoying. Like if I have a gig where, like I wouldn't have a bad gig now, but if I have a gig where I go, oh, I didn't quite enjoy it. Why is that? And I go back to the basics and I'll go, oh, well, you just started too quick. You didn't kind of let them know who you are. Sometimes I can smile too much. That's a weird thing, isn't it? But that it sort of doesn't suit me because that's not what they're expecting. So it's constantly learning, and it's very interesting talking to all sorts of comics and comics who've reached the absolute heights, and they would say the same thing to go. And everyone, who is good at comedy will always say, slow down. You talk too fast, slow down. And I think I'll be saying that to myself on my deathbed, going, okay, when you do that joke, slow down, joke, slow down.
Brilliant. Well, I tell you what, we're actually near to the end of our call here. I tell you what, Jo, it has been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Honestly, it's been brilliant. I'm definitely going to come to see you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in your show.
And we should have to have a drink in one of the bars in Leith that we were talking about before the show.
Absolutely. We'll get that sorted. We'll get that sorted as well. But listen, as I said, what are you doing after this? You're going to be rehearsing your
I've got to go through. I've got too much, which is a good thing to have. So I'm going to go through and see what jokes I can cut, because otherwise I'll be cutting during the show, and you don't want to go, oh, I might have to miss the last, my big finale. So I'm going to sort of, but it's so hard to time without an audience, and also the interaction bits. You go, I can't time how long that would be when I ask a question. So, but I've got to give myself a bit of leeway. So cut down a bit now. Yeah.
Good stuff.
But thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, listen, good luck with the run in the Fringes here. Look forward to seeing you. And listen, enjoy your week ahead.
Brilliant. Cheers, Bobby. Thanks very much.
Okay, doke.